So, good morning, everybody. My name is Philippa Haynes.
And I'm Mark Lee. Welcome to the Accountant's Success Secrets podcast.
This is where we showcase and celebrate successful accountants who are doing great things, have years of experience, and whose stories can inspire and encourage other accountants around the UK.
We normally talk to accountants who've been running their own practice successfully for a good few years, and we ask them to share their story, including the highs, the lows, and what they've learned on the way. Our aim is to provide some fundamental insights for you, our loyal listener, and there seem to be a few more of those than there were when we started. If you'd like to share your story in a similar way, do please get in touch with Philippa or myself.
Yeah, and I know that there are quite a few people out there who can't wait to hear from Mitch Hahn because they've already highlighted that they'll be there. So we are delighted to introduce you, Mitch Hahn, CEO of Nordens, a limited company firm of 65 people based in North London.
Yeah, Mitch joined the firm 18 years ago after leaving professional football. Aged 19, he was looking for a local job and was spotted by the firm's founder, Mark Norden, who saw Mitch's potential and took him on. He loves working with business owners and helping them to solve their problems and achieve their ambitions. He loves leading the firm, distinguishing leadership and management. Well done. And still plays football and continues to captain the Great Britain team in the Maccabea Games. He applies sports psychology both in his work as an accountant and as CEO of the firm.
Phew, welcome to the Accountant Success Secrets podcast. Mitch, is there anything else that you'd like us to add by way of introduction? Go for it.
That was a great intro. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. I just want to point out that Mark didn't spot me. I found Mark just so it's clear, because I know he'll listen to that, and I know that I don't want him to take credit for that. I found him. I found him. He did spot my talent, but I did find him. Find him. Yeah, but thank you for having me on. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Philippa and I, we like to dig deep into the person behind the accountant, and we seem to manage this with just a few focused questions and still keep the podcast to 30 minutes. I start with a combination question. What attracted you to accountancy, and even more crucially, how did you become CEO at Nordens?
The accountancy industry. Mark,
yeah.
That was yeah. Okay.
So the accountancy profession.
Well, the profession.
Disagree on that.
There's a bit of an in-joke going on here, everybody, just so you know.
Well, actually, funny enough, I actually got into the industry by accident. Nothing actually attracted me to it, believe it or not. So I just came out of football at 19, and I needed a job because I was just sitting around twiddling my thumbs, playing on the PlayStation as a teenager, and someone who was an arrogant teenager who thought they were going to make it as a professional footballer. So I was looking for a job. Came across Mark Norden, and it was called Mark Norden and Co. at the time, which is a terrible name. And it was literally just Mark and his dog. And literally Mark and his dog. There was in the office Mark and his border collie Nick. God rest his soul. It was a lovely dog. But yeah, it kind of just fell, and it kind of accidentally happened. And I really didn't think I would end up staying in the accountancy profession. But I didn't actually know I was going to stay. But what started to happen throughout the years was, Mark was teaching me the ropes. I was studying, I was doing my exams, but just doing all the basics, your bookkeeping, your payroll, your VAT, which I found so boring, so boring, and I hated it. But what I actually enjoyed doing was, business owners and people would come through the office doors, and we would just got chatting about life. And what I kind of found was I enjoyed listening to people's problems, and when you're chatting about people's problems, I didn't know I was doing it, but at the time I was just helping them find solutions to their problems, even though I didn't really have life experience at that time. And what you tend to see is people were coming through the door quite sort of, I won't say sad, but with their issues, and they were leaving with a smile on their face. And then it started developing into sort of business advice, and it just kind of went from there, really. And I used to love sort of helping people with their businesses, and I started developing a real passion for it, and it just kind of went from there. I felt like the accountancy came after the business support, just kind of backed everything up. But yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. Nothing really attracted attracted, although my dad always used to say to me, if you want to be rich, be an accountant. And I mean, he was completely wrong about that.
I pause you there. I remember a girl I was going out, I've been married for 41 years, but the girl I was going out with before I met my wife, her father didn't congratulate me when I passed my first accountancy exams. He said, you're going to be an accountant. You're never going to make as much money as if you were to run your own business. He was greatly disappointed. So I can relate to that. So Mitch, how did you go from sort of starting training and qualifying as an accountant to end up as CEO of the practice? And how's the firm grown over that time?
I mean, that's sort of nearly 20 years worth. So it's a long, I'll try and sort of make it, put it into a bit of a nutshell. I was never strong at sitting there doing exams. It was never my passion. I didn't enjoy it. I know some people do enjoy it. There's people here that absolutely love doing it. I know I don't get it, but they love doing it. But I ended up going, because I love to talk to business owners and I like talking to people, and I was always out socializing and drinking. But at the time, it just, because I was chatting to people and I took a genuine passion into what they do and what they were trying to achieve, businesses just started coming to us at the time. People just started, I heard that you're the right people to help me. And the referrals that were coming in were just unbelievable. And I think one year we grew by, I think it might have been 2008. I think it was 2008. We grew by like 125%. I mean, the numbers were small at the time, but it was still, the growth was unbelievable. And it was purely from business owners saying to, coming to us saying, I'm going to my accountant for business support, and I'm getting accountancy support in return. And with us, it was more business. I mean, I know the industry's changed a lot now, and the advisory is far more sort of far more standard practice. But at the time, it wasn't. It was pure. So it just kind of grew from there, and I ended up doing more of the business development side of things, which is what I love doing, and I had a passion for doing, and I was picking up so much business from it. And from there, I kind of changed. I said to Mark, we have to change the name. We cannot be called Mark Norden & Co anymore. I could see that there was a market for someone like us, a firm like us at the time. And I finally persuaded Mark to spend some money and change the name and rebrand and stuff. And Mark's quite tight, so anyone who knows Mark will understand that was a tough job in itself. But he's going to kill me when he listens to this. But yeah, and it just kind of went from there, and we kept growing and growing, and we kept finding more people. And it's really important to say that the people that we got in were people with personality and real sort of character and real passion to helping people. So no one really, I mean, until the later years at the time, came from the typical accounting industry, Mark. So I'm going to keep going with that, by the way. I know you are. But the accounting profession, but no one really came from it. So we took people that had character and personality and put them through training and really kind of helped them progress so that they had sort of life, day-to-day skills. And I'm not saying accountants don't have that, but I found it at the time far easier for us to train people in our profession rather than train character, because I don't think you can train that. So yeah, and it just kind of led to there, and we kept growing and growing, putting the right people in the right seats. Business development was great. We've got our own business development team that really do what I used to do, which was go out, and they have a real passion for it. And again, putting the right people in the right seats, and got a marketing team, and we just kind of grown. And I've ended up taking more of the lead role. I was always that person. I always saw myself as a leader. Any sort of team that I've been to playing football wise, I've always tended to be captain or working closely with the management to link the management and the team. So I've always liked that leadership role, and I guess that's just where we are. I've ended up in this role. Business development is still very much a passion of mine, but I like to see growth, and I want to do it for the right reasons. There's a lot of firms out there that will go and get, not that I'm against it, because some have, not everyone is like this, but there's firms out there that will go and get backing, private equity backing, just for the sheer sake of making as much money as possible and growing for just the sake of growing. Whereas our growth comes from it comes from the heart. We want to get to as many business owners as possible, and accountants as well. We do help accountants as much as we can as well, but mainly business owners that can, and help them thrive, really.
Yeah.
Long story that in a short. So
No,
I tried
no.
to bring
I
that.
mean, it's all fascinating. The leadership bit we'll obviously
Yeah.
talk about in a bit. But just before we do, I mean, before we came on air, you were saying that it wasn't a partner firm.
Yeah.
It was limited, and you were quite clear about that. Is there anything to say around that, just as explanation, or?
I've never worked in a partner-led firm, so I can't comment about that. We've always been set up as a limited company, with a structure, a business structure. We've got a CEO, myself, COO, Chief Marketing Officer, and for some reason, and I know we touched on this before, Mark, but in professional services, it's never really been like that, and I can't comment why. I don't know, because I've only sort of had experience through one way, but I feel that business owners go to their accountants like for business advice and business support, and usually get accountancy advice in return. And I think because we're set up as a business and set up as a limited company and not a typical practice, I know that there's a real push through the profession at the minute to change. You laughing, Mark? You like that one, yeah? I will change it back to industry shortly. But we're able to use our internal structure to be able to offer actual advisory services that other firms say they offer but probably don't. And I think that it's also not reliant on, I mean, there's only so much a partner can take on before they can't take on anymore. And if they do take on too much, they can't give the client the level of service that they probably need. So having a business structure and a sort of director-led business firm has allowed us to scale whilst providing a really sort of great service that we used to provide, which a lot of firms struggle with. A lot of firms that grow can't deliver the same level of service, or their fees, they just have to charge extortionate fees, and it's just not viable for me.
So, I mean, you've been at Nordens for a long time, obviously.
Yeah,
I mean,
long time.
you are part of the furniture and really, I hesitate to say founder, because, as you say, Mark will kill you, but not this Mark, but Mark Norden. But what have you learned along the journey? I mean, you talked about leadership, as I suspect that's one of the things, but what else? What have you learned, do you think?
Well, actually, Philippa, I was before the furniture. I brought in all the furniture in our new office. So I'd like to, yeah, as much as I'm
It looks
part of
very
it,
nice.
it's actually a very nice office. Yeah, it's a very nice office. What have I learned along the journey? Well, yeah, leadership's been great. I feel like my experience in sport has had a great part in the leadership role that I've played. I like sports psychology. It's one of the biggest things that I've picked up on along the way, and I have studied it, but mainly from experiencing it, from being managed a certain way by bad managers, and from I think with sport, actually walking on a pitch and having the fire in your heart to want to do well, not just for you, but for other people, it's massive. And I've always tried to sort of bring that into Nordens, where, great, I want you to do well for you and really sort of help people get to the best that they can possibly be, have the fire to do it. But I want people to do it for the firm as well, and really buy into what we're trying to do, the culture, the values as well. So leadership's been a huge part. But I think there's a few things that I've kind of learned throughout the way, and one of the I'll go through them. So there's a few that stand out for me, and I heard Mark Zuckerberg actually say it really well the other day. I heard it on a TikTok, actually, how the world's changed. It's ideas don't come out fully formed. I think that's a really, really good a good point to make, and I think Nike get it spot on, where it's just do it. I see so many firms wait, and clients as well, where it's like, oh, we're waiting, we're working on our idea, we're working on it, and it takes a year to work on, or months to work, and by that time it's too late. And I think Nike get it right. Like I just said, just do it. Just do it. Just do something. It's never going to be perfect from the start. You'll refine it as you go. And I think if you look at all the good products or services that are out there, they've all evolved to where they were. I think there's a famous picture of the Coca-Cola brand where they first started to where they are now. And it's just do it. Otherwise, you're going to miss the boat. So I think that's really something I've learned. I've always, at the start of Nordens, I was always trying to really make the idea perfection before we did it, and worked on this. And the truth is the stuff that we've just done has actually worked better because it's allowed us to evolve quicker. So innovation as well. Innovate's another one. Always innovate. I sat at a round table. one of the AI roundtables that they do. It was quite interesting. We were the smallest firm in there, and we're quite a good sized firm, but we were one of the smallest, which was great because I love being around firms. I like being the smallest person in the room because you always learn more. But I couldn't believe how far we were ahead of everybody else. Honestly, Mark, it was insane. Philip, it was crazy. You think you're sitting with the big boys here, and they were so far behind, which was amazing for me because we're never happy with our innovation here. And I don't mean it like that. We're obviously happy with what we've got, but we're always looking to better our systems and better what we do, improve our service. And we're never content with it. I think
What you're saying doesn't surprise me because of the structure of the practice that you've got. It's easier to make decisions. It's easier to change things when you don't have a bunch of partners all having to buy in and agree.
Yeah.
And most larger firms, I used to advise professional service firms, both in our profession and in others. And I, one session I remember 25 years ago is, are you running your firm as a business or as a club into the 21st century? Because so many professional service firms with partners were getting all the partners having to buy into things. They didn't have management teams. And that's been a huge evolution over the years. It doesn't surprise me that a firm of your size with your structure is able to navigate and evolve faster than more traditional firms set up as partnerships. So that's not to take away anything from what you've achieved. It's actually to.
No, I completely agree. No, I completely agree. Yeah. Sorry,
but for me, I'm listening and I hear hunger, and I hear lots of ideas, and I hear kind of leadership and innovation going together. And so you're scouting all the time to improve and to take everybody with you. I think that's kind of what I was hearing. One of which I think is amazing, and that's great leadership. Taking you back to, you talked about some bad leaders, some bad coaches in football. What was bad? Because then it shows what good is as well.
Oh, there's so many.
Just give us one or two, because
do you know what? I think the biggest one, and I think the most obvious one, is lack of communication. I think that the lack of communication can lead to so many different things. Everybody thinks different, and I think a character as well, understanding character. So I think if you understand someone enough, you know how to communicate to them, and you know what makes them tick and you know what doesn't. And there's been times where someone hasn't understood how I respond to certain things. So someone may have dropped me, unlikely, but someone may have dropped me, and they won't communicate with me after or before. And it would really make me go into myself. I'd lose confidence. And I wouldn't perform if and when I was needed. And I think that, certain things are the same here. If you set your expectations, you have to communicate properly to that person based on how they react and how their mind works and what their character's like. So I think communications, I would say, is probably the biggest factor in leadership. And as you get bigger, it gets harder, right? Because how do you communicate with 65 people every single day whilst also doing everything else? So I think you have to communicate and make sure those people understand communication, and those people understand the character of their team, and so on. And I think that's why a lot of big firms, not just in our industry, but in all different other industries as well, where the bigger they get, the culture changes and the service drops, because communication and people get, maybe the systems aren't strong enough, or people tend to get lazy with communication. But I think communication really is the biggest one for me.
Yeah, effective communicate. The key is effective communication.
Yes.
There's a lot of people who think they're communicating well, and you alluded to the point just now. Something I often say when I'm mentoring accountants is that effective communication is determined by whether or not the other person hears and understands what you intended. It's up to you to make that happen.
You know what though, Mark? I'll go one step further. I think it's not just about hearing and understanding. I think it's about feeling. And I think that, you know, you can communicate to someone and they can understand it, but they may not feel it. And I think, you know, part of psychology is your thoughts. Thoughts lead to your feelings, which lead to your actions, which lead to your results, right? So everything comes back to your thoughts. So if you get into somebody's thoughts and you talk to them about their thoughts, then they're the next thing they're going to go into is feelings. And you want them to really feel why they're doing something. And once they feel why they're doing something, then the action will lead to either, you know, hopefully the action that they need to take. But the problem is, if you communicate, or, you know, like you said, effective communication, if you don't communicate effectively, those thoughts will lead into negative feelings, which will lead to negative actions, which will lead to negative results. So I think that is really key, what you just said. I agree. Effective communication that leads to feeling why you do it. When they say your why should make you cry. That's what they say.
So,
Love it.
So talking about sort of negative there, but not wishing to be negative, what have you learned? What are the mistakes that you've made along the way then? Because I mean, it sounds like, you know, you sort of push forward, but that means that sometimes things haven't gone as you planned. So
every day, Philippa, every day. I call them hurdles, but you're right. I mean, honestly, I make mistakes every single day. I could be making a mistake right now, saying some of the certain things that you never know when you're going to make a mistake. But I think mistakes are really important. I think it's really key to make mistakes, because without making mistakes, you don't learn. And then providing you take that and do something with it, I think mistakes are really important. So I think I saw another video. I think it was I can't remember which company it was, CEO of a huge American company, and she asks her daughter, what did she make a mistake on at school today? What did she fail on at school today? Which, rather than what did you do well at school today? And I think it's really, really, like the psychological aspect. It's the same question, just in a different way. But mistakes happen all the time. I think one of the biggest mistakes, and I won't call it a mistake, it was one of the things I learned over the years was, and I've always been young I've always looked young without, so when I was, 20, when you're 22, 23, even a bit older, and you're going to speak with these business owners who have run their business for 10, 15, 20 years, and you're just in your early 20s, telling them effectively to how to run their business, or trying to sort of help them with their business, is tough. So I always had, and it really used to depress me. And I use that word, I won't use it lightly. I was really in a bad way in my sort of early 20s, depressed, miserable, in every part of life, because mainly my work life, which was, no one would take me seriously. I went through a stage of people not, and that was internally as well. And, I used to really struggle with it. And, I used to ask Mark all the time, why don't people take me? He used to say to me, people aren't taking you seriously enough. I would talk to them about clients, and they would just like pie me off, and they wouldn't pie me off. They wouldn't, clients wouldn't take me seriously sometimes. And it would really upset me, because I was so passionate about what I did. So one of the things that I listened to an audio, I was really struggling. And there were times where I wouldn't get out of bed for like 4 days. So I was really bad. I went through a really bad time, which I've spoken about before on other podcasts. It's kind of like something on its own. But what I listened to an audio book, and it kind of changed my life. And what it made me think was, what it made me realize was, your inner world your inner world creates your outer world. And it's quite a key thing to remember, because I ended up stupid looking in the mirror and was like, why I need to take myself seriously. If I take myself seriously, everyone else will take me seriously. So I started changing my dress code. I started, I was like, I don't know if you've seen Suits. Harvey Specter always comes in and he's, exactly. So I bought a suit. Yeah. So I went out and bought a Harvey Specter suit. I went out and, I made sure I was presentable. I was early. I was, everything that I did, I changed and you know what? Within a week, everywhere, it just kind of all changed. So I think one of the mistake is that I never took myself seriously. And I think that was a really hard time in my life. But by having that experience, it's really allowed me to help other people in the firm to be able to develop. But yeah, that's a kind of long one. Decision making is a mistake that I guess made in the past as well, and I think it's a mistake that a lot of people make. I think people don't appreciate the speed of decision making. I think it's only since COVID did we kind of really appreciate how quick decisions were made. We were making decisions, big decisions on a daily basis, and things were happening. And I feel that people that didn't make decisions during that period never, or stood still rather than advanced or went backwards. But I think only till then I've spent a lot of time sort of procrastinating on decisions, whereas now it's decisions made, and if it's the wrong decision, you put it right. But to not do anything is not a good thing, and they're mistakes that I've made in the past.
That's terrific. Delaying decisions is essentially a decision to do nothing until you do something. Obviously, I can so relate to the challenges you had as a younger man. I grew a moustache when I was 18 to try and ensure that I looked older, and I didn't shave it off till I was 39.
Wow.
At which point I decided I didn't need to look older anymore.
Yeah.
And I still remember one interview I went for where I had significant experience, but I remember being told when I didn't get it, the recruiter came back to me and said, they really liked you, Mark, but they thought you had insufficient gravitas and grey hair. And that was a real body blow at the time. But as you say, that essentially what you're referring to, I think, is some might consider to be inner confidence, not arrogance. And it's quite clear from the way that you talk, you don't have that arrogance that can be a complete turn-off from a leadership perspective and a client service perspective, but you developed the necessary inner confidence. And I suspect that that's what you're helping to build within the team and everybody within the firm as well.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
I mean, we're sadly coming to an end, but we have a couple of questions that we normally ask, which is, what's the secret of your success, and what singles you out as a practice? And it seems pretty clear to me that there is the energy there, but is there anything that at that stage you'd kind of add, just as a
you know what, there's the secret to success is you mentioned sort of inner confidence and I guess ego, right? It's something you have to drop because we've all got ego, and it's just staying in control of it. But one of the things I would say has got us to where we are, and one of the things that I think I understand quite well, I would say it's one of my strengths, is building a team that are better than me. I think that's I've got a COO who is far better than me at anything that he does. I've got a CMO who she is an unbelievable, marketing wise, incredible, like far better than me. And I think so long as everyone's aligned, I think you're going to create great results. And there's a lot of people that have ego that want to do everything and they just can't. So I think one of the key things, don't get me wrong, there's a couple of others, it's a question I get asked actually quite a lot. So I would say that the team that you build around you has to be aligned, and always build a team that are better than you at what they do, and drop your ego. And I think also genuinely care. It's one of our values, genuinely care. I mean, I've got a true passion for putting smiles on people's faces, and not just clients, but people. It makes me happy when I make someone else happy, and I like getting the best out of people. It's a real passion for me, and see people achieve their goals. So that's really what I would say.
So relate to that, putting a smile on people's faces and helping them to achieve their goals and ambitions. Absolutely right. And dropping the ego.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, one of the things I've noticed about you is that you read a lot, and you find out things a lot, and do a lot of research, and have a passion and a curiosity. And actually, that's a rarity. It's rare to find that in many ways, but that is what makes a fantastic leader and a fantastic business development person, because they are always looking, and that's what I've picked up from you. And the understanding of brand. You talked about Coke and all of those things, which is kind of my world, so that's music to my ears. But just having that real holistic vision of what success is all about and helping people. That's come out to me today. Really, really good.
Oh, well, I'm grateful that I'm glad that that's because that is exactly what it is, Philippa. To be fair, it's exactly all about that, and it's so long everyone else needs to have that approach as well, and that's what's key as well. Building a team around you to have the same why, the same purpose, and that's kind of where what it comes down to.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So people are going to be inspired to get in touch, I'm sure. So what's the best way for them to get in touch with you or somebody at Nordens?
I mean, they pick up the phone, give us a call, drop me an email, message me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a good way because I think it's good to have a conversation. If anyone wants to have a conversation, and I'm always up for. And don't think that if people are accountants listening to this that they can't reach out and get in touch. Like, I love speaking to accountants. I've got loads of accountant relationships that I just chat. I want the industry to thrive. So, reach out if you are an accountant. Don't think that, oh, Mitch is an accountant, I don't want to reach out to him. No, reach out. Let's have a chat. Let's get to know each other. I'm down for those conversations as well.
Love it. That's wonderful. Thank you ever so much for that, Mitch. And Philippa, let's remind our listeners how they can find out about you and Insight 101.
So I'm LinkedIn as well. Definitely, I'm there every day. Website is insight101.co.uk if you want to book some time with me, or as Mitch said, pick up the phone. I'm definitely open always to chatting and supporting people. So tell us about you, Mark. How can listeners find you?
Yeah, well, online everywhere. I'm Bookmark Lee. My business card is a bookmark, inevitably.
Very good.
Yeah, been doing it for a long time. But I'm also on LinkedIn, and always happy to talk to accountants. It's what I'm about, is helping them to be more successful. I have a sole practice club for sole practitioners, as well as mentoring on a one-to-one basis.
Brilliant. So that's it. If you've enjoyed the Accountant Success Secrets podcast, or A.S., as I like to call it, get that one in, please share the love online. Leave a review on Apple or Spotify and let us have your feedback too.
Absolutely. And do reach out to either Philippa or myself if you'd like to be interviewed on a future podcast. Many thanks again to Mitch and to Philippa. And until next time on the Accountant Success Secrets podcast, or anywhere else that we might meet online or in real life. Goodbye for now.
Thanks guys. Thank you,
Mitch. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
That is the end.